Yeah, come in.
Kids, listen, I just finished playing this game. I gotta tell you all about it.
Jesus Christ.
Again?
You know what? These retro shooters are getting really good at emulating classic gameplay and graphics without feeling like they're trying too hard to do so. Today's little game, ARKOS, developed by Russian studio RetroSouls, does exactly that, with a really cool voxel-based engine and straightforward arcade gameplay that combines into a short, sweet, stressful experience that left me wanting a hell of a lot more. RetroSouls describes the game as being inspired by such classics as Wolfenstein, Heretic, and Catacomb 3D, which it fully embodies. You've already seen the title of this video, but take note that Super Nintendo Heretic both 100% captures the vibe that ARKOS leans into, and also does it a bit of a disservice. I really wanted to title this video Hex and Voxel so that I could have that harsh Germanic feel to the syllables, but ARKOS cribs so much more from Heretic than it does the spiritual sequel. ARKOS' setup is super minimal. According to the Steam page, you play as Archos, a white wizard who's on the trail of their old mentor, a sorcerer that disappeared once upon a time and left behind a series of clues and magical weapons that they'd conjured. Archos is seeking to become more powerful in their mentor's footsteps, so off we go, traveling through 5 episodes of 4 to 5 maps each, picking up said magical weapons along the way. Each episode has Archos' journey through a specifically themed world, such as snowy mountains or an insidious dream world, culminating in a massive boss fight at the end of each one. It's as straightforward as it gets, with more arcade-style gameplay and voxel-based graphics taking center stage. And these graphics are super fucking cool. Holy shit, look at all of these. For you kids who aren't in the technical know, voxels are basically 3D blocks, where sprites are 2D blocks. So everything in the game is built out of hundreds of thousands of tiny cubes, which makes it real neat to watch as enemies and objects in the environment crumble to pieces when destroyed. And there are a lot of destructible objects in the game. So as you progress through the maps, the ground will be littered with thousands of bits of trees, stones, and viscera. Constructing objects out of voxels creates the illusion of 2D sprites that have multiple sides. So when I dropped in and started playing, I was thrown back by just how much this game looks like an old arcade game from the 80s, complete with a slight screen glow effect, which makes it feel like you're burning your tiny little retinas out in a low-lit bowling alley as your parents are off drinking beer and planning a key party while you're distracted. The 80s were a strange time, kids. You be thankful that you've got your Wi-Fi and smartphones and gaming laptops. Back in the day, we had to venture out into the real world to play the good shit. Risk our lives ducking into dingy arcades that were filled with the cacophony of hundreds of cabinets going off all at the same time, lit by neon blues and pinks and harsh screen glow, staring into an abyss of black populated by the low-res figures built out of sprites and passion. So when I say that Archos perfectly captures that nostalgic, dangerous time just through the visuals, you better believe it. Archos' biggest strength is the minimalism it presents itself with. If anything, the graphics and aesthetic work only slightly against itself, because yes, it does present that 80s arcade niche with panache, but the cutesy Atari/NES design work does little to prepare you for the grind you'll discover within. I almost didn't even dive into this one, and you know what? If it wasn't for running this channel, I probably would have passed over this little gem, and that would have been a damn shame. If you're watching this and you're kind of hesitant based on the game designs, shake yourself a little bit and start working on looking past it. Yes, there absolutely is a loving devotion to 8-bit style, and the enemy designs are straight out of a lost Legend of Zelda game, but Archos has a fortitude similar to those old-school arcades of yore, and while it'll lure you in with a gentle ride, by the end, you'll be thinking real tactically on the fly as swarms of tough enemies descend upon you. All of this is coupled with a lovingly crafted MIDI score by artist Kubikami. This is so good. God, it feels just good to hear a genuine fucking MIDI soundtrack in a game, let alone one that is this good. It stumbles on 1 or 2 tracks, mostly in the 4th episode, where one track is just way too high tempo for the map's requirements to wander around and carefully search for objects, and a couple of them have an odd piratey guitar to them. But overall, this soundtrack fucking slaps. Start with the main menu and its classic fantasy tune, which charmingly welcomes you to the game. and then take in some of the better tracks that evoke both iconic PC gaming as well as some Super Nintendo staples.
God, that shit is so good.
The game opens in a hub, which allows the player to select the episode they want to play through as well as which difficulty setting they desire. Normal skill is the default, but you can go hop over some lava in order to access hard difficulty. There's also a hidden insanity difficulty somewhere on the hub, but I'll be damned if I can find it. Yet. I'll keep looking for it because I have a meaty desire to see just how vicious this game can be. In the meantime, walking into the first episode, we get accustomed to the setup. Archos starts off with a basic magic staff that slowly fires red bolts, has a health and mana pool, which top off at 150 points each, as well as armor, which also tops at 150. That basic bitch staff doesn't consume mana, FYI, so it'll be your emergency, I really need to conserve mana because there's something nasty just a little deeper in the maze and there haven't been any mana pickups in forever, weapon. Sure, it works in a pinch, and I found myself utilizing it a lot on weaker enemies to conserve mana, but the initial weapon is absolutely reserved for resource management and for destroying objects to try and find hidden items. We'll quickly find our first mana consuming weapon, a blue staff, which does the same amount of damage as the red staff but fires twice as fast, so you can take out incoming enemies quicker. There's blue potions to pick up for health, purple potions for mana, and gold shields for armor. Super basic, and it doesn't change up much during the rest of the game. Around the third episode or so, you'll be introduced to pools of health and mana that will slowly refill your meters when you stand in them, and while that sounds like it makes going along a little bit easier, they usually mean that there are no potion pickups around, so you'll have to think carefully about your method of attack. Weapons are pretty satisfying, starting off with the red and blue staffs, then moving into the Rising Phoenix, which essentially is a magic shotgun that consumes 2 mana per shot. Shotgun rules apply here, as your shots spread out over distance, but this also makes for decent crowd control when you're facing a swarm of baddies all grouped together, puncturing multiple enemies with one shot. The Eternal Sonata is the next weapon we find, and it's a very interesting one. While I noted in the control setup that right mouse click is for alt fire mode, none of the weapons actually have an alt fire except for the Sonata. Fire a shot, then right click when it hovers over where you want it, and you'll teleport to where the projectile is. You'll need it to get past wide patches of lava, or to get through narrow spaces that you can't walk through. I really like the concept of this weapon, but it consumes 5 mana per shot, so while it's good for teleporting, it's really not cost effective as a weapon to use. The Stormbringer is the machine gun of the arsenal, doing the same damage as the red and blue staffs, but firing nearly 4 times as fast. And the final weapon is my personal favorite and the most interesting, the Soul Eater. This bad motherfucker consumes 4 mana per shot and fires even faster than the Stormbringer, meaning you'll go through your entire mana pool like that if you hold down the mouse. But equipping the Soul Eater means you can stand in lava, and the lava will continually refill the Soul Eater's mana pool. That is seriously fucking cool, and when you get it late game, you'll probably start cackling like I did when you realize how stupidly powerful it is. But the thing to be careful of is that it's possible to shoot faster than your mana pool will refill. If you're not paying attention, you could find yourself suddenly switch to the red staff because your mana is empty, and now you're standing in lava taking damage, which is really fucking bad because lava does 25 points of damage per second. Do not fuck with lava in this game. You will regret it, you will hate it, and it will cause you to die accidentally multiple times, just like it did to me. I even died less than 5 minutes into the game because I went for the hard difficulty and didn't realize I needed to hop over the lava protecting it, and I fucking died. And dying in this game means starting a map all the way over from the beginning. That's the big gimmick about running through the gauntlet here, is that the game will save between maps, but not in the middle of them. You'll be tasked with making it from beginning to end of each level, which sometimes means navigating some twisty mazes and facing down hordes of bad guys. On paper, that sounds like a harsh deal, deal, but in practice, Arcos' maps are super short. It's more about being careful with your resources and navigating the various enemy placements and booby traps than it is about long slogs where you can save scum through. As such, progression in Arcos is a process of discovery and reaction. Find keys to open doors, handle new enemies that have spawned in where you've already cleared a path, hunt down secret doors that lead to bonus potions and armor pickups, and brace yourself for inevitable traps that force you into combat with waves of enemies that you are unprepared for. Arcos also has a few tricks up its sleeve, with some map-specific events that don't occur anywhere else in the game. This makes these surprises feel fresh and genuine and memorable because they pop up only once and out of nowhere and inform your decision-making about looking out for future surprises. And those surprises are mostly going to come in the form of monsters popping up around the maps. Arcos' designs, as I mentioned earlier, scream classic Legend of Zelda, what with the skull-shaped spiders and malicious wizards and aggressive knights. Enemy classes range from stationary turrets to monster-spawning spiders to mobile aggressors who turn and run towards you the moment you're recognized. Most of them come in different varieties, which are all color-coded so you can visually recognize what kind of danger you're in. Take the wizards, for example. The green ones are melee only, so they run towards you with their knives out. Red ones cast ranged magic, which can and will do some serious harm, and orange ones cast fire spells, which hurt even worse. Moving from tier to tier, each one can also handle more damage than the lower tier, so you'll be frantically ducking and dodging incoming fire as you're trying to equip the weapon you need to handle the crowds. Some varieties don't pop up until closer to endgame, making it so that you're on your toes for a good portion of the experience and don't have much time to get comfortable. The moment you get lulled into a comfortable state is the moment you're going to regret it. Being that there are very few types of enemies, it can be easy to think that you've got a handle on a situation, but RetroSouls wisely deploys monsters in different clusters to catch players off guard. Nothing is more interesting than clearing a room, pressing a switch to unlock a door in the next room, and turning around to find a squad of wizards has just spawned in. Boss encounters are no joke either. At the end of each episode, there's a fairly epic battle to go through, and while they might seem timid at first, remember to keep in mind that if you die, you start the whole map over again. Now, factor in the bosses hit hard and fast, and move quicker than the rest of the enemies, fire faster than the enemies, and usually have environmental hazards around them while you're trying to dodge incoming fire. The first boss, the dragon centipede, the lion caterpillar, is a great introduction to what to expect from the rest of the bosses in the game. Just easy enough to get through on the first try, just difficult enough for you to know that it's not going to be this easy next time. As you progress, you'll face multiple bosses at the same time, increasing the pressure and the need to maneuver as quickly as possible. I was a big fan of the ace cards fight. The randomness of fighting 4 living playing cards while blasting away as much as possible was so much fun. You don't have time to question whatever logic there might be in battling playing cards as bosses, because logic doesn't really matter here. It's an arcade game, it's a fantasy, and it all works really, really well. I honestly had a hard time on a couple of these. Arcos really puts your FPS skills to test at times, but I will say that the game's biggest weakness is that it goes by just a little too quickly. Arcos is a budget title through and through. At less than $10, it lasts about as long as you'd think for that price. I blazed through the entirety of the game in just under 4 hours, with the most amount of time I spent in the game being on the 5th and final episode. Levels go by fast. I mean, in the realm of 5 minutes on average. The whole of the first episode is really, really easy, especially by comparison to the later episodes, and when I finished the first level, I honestly was kind of shocked that was it. Arcos' biggest strength, and ultimately its biggest weakness, is the simplicity involved with the game. It's here for a good time, not for a long time, which does bring up the question of brevity in shooters. How long does a game have to be for it to be worth the price of admission? I asked the same question earlier this year with Vomitorium, which only lasted 4 hours, and yet was so compact and concise and so good that it's a heavy contender for my personal game of the year. Arcos does not establish itself as an epic quester, nor does it attempt to present anything other than that. It's an arcade shooter through and through, and arcade games notoriously aren't nearly as long as we feel like they are. It's just difficulty spikes that require more quarters tossed into the slots that make it so. Arcos definitely parcels out the game by requiring you to clear a map in one go, or you have to start over. That also makes it so you can't just breeze through the game. Smart design on a compact level is something that I've always admired, hence why Arcos is something I'm highly recommending. But many players are going to see the short playtime and no doubt be turned away. Don't let that happen. Yes, the first half is much easier than the second, and that makes it pass by really quickly, but there's brains and brawn underneath the cartoony veneer here. I really, truly enjoyed this fucking game. No joke. I thought I was in for an experience that would be neat and or interesting, and I got a Heretic Light, which has me begging for more. I'd love a longer game that incorporates more puzzles and secrets should ARKOS 2 become a thing. But ARKOS 2 doesn't become a thing unless people buy the first one. Fortunately, I've seen some big names in the retro shooter community on Twitter spreading the word about this release, which is hopefully leading directly to Steam sales. I really, truly cannot stress this enough, kids. A game like ARKOS, regardless of the length, is one that deserves support. RetroSouls put a lot of heart and soul into something that is so simple and easily accessible, which despite the very few flaws that I noted, is one that I'm already yearning to come back to. I mean, shit, if I can find that insanity difficulty, it is game fucking on. Hard mode already provides a decent challenge for those who want their arcade experience to be on the rougher side, so insanity mode is going to be fucking nonsense. ARKOS is brisk, beefy, and belongs in your library. If you're interested in a good retro shooter that'll give your skills a bit of a challenge, this is for you. If you're interested in an arcade experience that lets you just dive in and go for it without worrying about world building or exposition, this is for you. If you're just a fan of fucking first-person shooters in general, I urge you to check this out and play it and see how much fun it is. I'm honestly more excited for the potential sequel that this game holds than I am for this game, and I'm really excited for this game. ARKOS is a wonderful throwback title that was so much better than I expected, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Kids, we're coming up on the end of the year soon, which means I've only got 2 or 3 more videos left in me before I get to take a break. I've started up a Discord for anyone to pop in and join and shitpost memes, which you'll find in the description below. Remember to play nice with each other if you join in, as the #1 rule around these parts is be nice, play nice, and stay hydrated. Actually, that's 3 rules. Fuck it. Hop in the Discord, come introduce yourselves, and remember that Dad's always here if you need any advice or someone to play some shooters with. Until then, make sure you go give your mom a hug. I'll see you next time.